There's a tape player slash recorder out of that console. We're going to be doing a couple of hopefully only mechanical repairs, because you press it and it doesn't play anything, the cassette doesn't move. So the belt is bad and there's also something wrong with the mechanism. So I'm going to be trying to fix those two issues. The other one is the fast forward button doesn't stay down. This one does. This one does not. So we're going to try and address these issues here. I already removed the circuit board out of it to facilitate the repairs. You can see here they did the same sort of thing as the amplifier board, because this is stereo, and what they do is that this is split down right down the middle, and on both sides it's exactly the same. It's a mirror image, and so what's on one side is identical on the other side, one per channel, which I think is very cool. Makes it very easy to work with and identify what you're doing here. What I do see here is it has these two potentiometers here, which are the same type as the ones that were in the biasing of the amplifier, and those were totally open, so I wonder if these are going to be bad too. But yeah, cool little board. Love that symmetrical thing. Tape player is the same brand as the console. Stereo, looks like a shoebox recorder. So we're going to do some repairs here. So I have it all apart. The other issue besides the belt is this little wheel here. That's when that turns with the belt. This is supposed to this little shaft down here is supposed to turn this guy right here, and it doesn't quite do that. There's a spring on it that goes right like that. I already took this apart. I just put it back together to demonstrate. And that spring sits on the second hole here from the bottom. I'm going to try and move it to the first one to add a little bit of tension in favor of it touching this wheel over here. I'm also going to clean, there's like these little rubber things around these, and I found that when it comes to these rubber things and tape players and belts, when you clean them with alcohol, they get a lot of traction again. So I'm going to do a general cleanup and lubrication of this thing, and hopefully it'll only be mechanical work. Okay, so I took apart the button mechanism here to see why this button doesn't stick. And I took it all apart and cleaned it up really nice and re-lubricated between these two plates. Doesn't seem like there's any other place where you really want to lubricate it anyway. But it turns out that this is actually made to not stick. It's not a fault. Down here, there you can see like some hooks, like right here. It's kind of hard to see, I guess. When you press the button, the hook engages the button and doesn't let it go till this is pressed. And I thought the hook over here, where's that stupid thing? I thought the hook right here was broken off, and it turns out here you can see the hook right here. Thought the one over here was broken off, but that's actually how it is. The only other one that looks like that is the stop button, and that's not supposed to stick down. And I checked, definitely not broken, that's just how it is. So that's kind of weird, I hadn't seen that before in a tape player. I guess it was supposed to be like a, they wanted to make this like a seek function, so you just press it and seek till you want to go, until you find where you want to go. And I'm gonna try and take this plate apart. There's nothing really wrong with it that I can see, except for the fact that there's a lot of dirt in there. If I press over here, where is it? If I press here, you can see there's a lot of, well, actually, you can see there's a lot of dry lubrication in there. Okay, so I'm trying to fix the cap stand in this thing, because the original is split. You can see here, and I just tore it off of the old rim, and I found this tape mechanism that luckily had the same cap stand in it, but the rim out of it was worn out. This is the rim from the cap stand out of that mechanism, and it's almost like the plastic shrunk or something. There was a ton of play, and this is the rim from the original cap stand, and I'm trying to, I already ripped it out of the old rim. I just broke one of the ends off and slipped that out of there. Now I'm trying to fit this tire over this rim here, because this one's good, this one's not worn out in the middle. I'm hoping I can do that without splitting this one or something. Alright, what I did is I used the flywheel here as a support. I just slipped the rim over, and then the tire I just put it in there and pushed it in. Worked like a charm. Capstan's back in, spinning nice and freely, and I just gotta wipe off the excess oil there. So I put the board back in and everything, cleaned the contacts on the switch here, record playback switch. The other, basically the biggest issue I had here was this wheel here, because it has a little clutch mechanism, and this is spring loaded, and the tension's upward. And inside here there was a little felt pad acted like a clutch, and that transferred the motion to this inner wheel here. This inner wheel has a shaft, and that connects all the way over here, and this shaft turns this guy right here. So the reason for the clutch is that when the tape ends or something gets stuck, this guy stops moving, and so you want this to slip so it doesn't keep trying to drive it, and like when the tape ends you don't want it to like pull the tape out of one of the pulleys or something. So you need a little clutch mechanism here. So the felt pad was too worn out, and there wasn't enough contact, and it was just slipping all the time. So what I did is I found this little rubber grommet slash gasket or whatever it is, and I stuck it in here, and it works really well. Took a bit of experiment until I found something that would work. I crazy glued it to the metal part here. The bottom part isn't glued, that's the part that slips, and it works really well. And also added a bit of tension here. I moved the spring to the first hole, and that adds more tension between this guy and this guy right here, the rubber. So yeah, switch here is making perfect contact now. It was dirty initially, but now the switch is doing pretty. Check out this little piece of paper that got stuck there. It's just going back and forth. Fish it out of there. There we go. So I'm gonna test run this thing before I cover it back up. But everything seems to be working okay. I tried it with a cassette and it turns, but I'm not sure if it's at the right speed or anything. I'm gonna have to hook this thing up to the console to really know how it's doing and everything. There's this little button here that you press down, and it presses down on this thing here, this little spring, and when you press the button, this part here slides up, and what this does when you press down the this is the record button, when you press down at the same time as you press down the play button, this is down like that, and it catches this little piece of plastic, and that little piece of plastic actuates the record playback switch. So here's with a cassette. I cleaned the heads and everything, but I should probably clean them again after I put in this cassette through it, because it's really dusty. I don't play cassettes too often, but there's play. Not sure if it's at the right speed or anything. This cassette's a little bit crappy. It's cracked over here and stuff. Fast forward. Fast forward seems to struggle a little bit with heavy loads, or at least it was initially. Seems to be okay right now. Rewind. Fast forward. Play. Rewind. Fast forward, rewind, play. So that seems to be working good. Okay, so here's this thing pretty much all back together. I was having an issue with the playback where it was doing this to my cassettes. Let me see if I can show you that. I don't know if you can see that crease right there. It was eating my tapes up really bad. What was happening is that, if you remember, I said I was going to change the spring here to the last position over on the left, and that was adding too much tension with the shaft here against the part here, and it was making the take-up spool run slower than the rate of the capstan was passing tape through. So the capstan was passing tape through too fast for the take-up spool, and it was kind of bunching up at the capstan here, and it was getting all chewed up. So I just pulled back that spring to the second position where it was originally, and it's working fine now. And Yeah, let me demo this. Well, you probably won't be able to see it. It's a bit dark in there. But there's play. Fast forward. Rewind. And yeah, it's all working pretty good, including the record button is activating the switch and everything. So yeah, working pretty good now. Put it back in the console and see if it works.